Every single week when I come to you, I say the exact same thing. It goes like this. Welcome, welcome back to crafting a meaningful life. You get to craft your life in what you want it to be. And if I've ever had a podcast that is about that very thing, this is it. This is the podcast you're going to listen to at the beginning of this new year, 2026. That may be the podcast that'll be opening the door of a life-changing momentum for you. And I've invited a very special guest to join me today to help us discuss this huge topic of health, wellness, fitness, and weight loss, Dr. Douglas Greer. Welcome, Douglas. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Mary. I'm excited.
Okay, so what would you like me to call you? Dr. Greer? Douglas? What do you tell me, Doug? What would you like me to?
You can call me Doug. I'm Douglas if I'm in trouble, and Dr. Greer sounds too formal, so let's just go with Doug.
Well, I just want people to know that you really truly are an MD and that this is your specialty, bariatric surgery. So tell me a little bit about that kind of training and how you came to the point that you decided this is what I want to specialize in.
Yeah, so bariatric surgery is an offshoot of general surgery, which when people think about general surgery, it's appendixes, gallbladders, hernias.
Right.
While I was doing 5 years of general surgery training, part of what we do is work with bariatric surgeons. I had the opportunity to spend time in their clinics and, in their surgeries, see their patients before and after surgery. And what I really noted with bariatric surgery is that, if you take out someone's gallbladder, you take out someone's appendix, they're obviously grateful. They were in a lot of pain beforehand. They had a lot of issues, but usually you never see them again, which
Right.
if you see them again, usually something bad has happened. But with bariatric surgery, it's a unique specialty where we really get to know our patients. We get to see them for months before surgery and then hopefully forever after surgery. So you really get to see this
Hmm.
life, this change that people have where they've gone from something that they've struggled with their entire life in many cases to all of a sudden they've lost weight, they've been able to do things that they've been able to do, and you really get to see this. And so I really got to kind of connect with patients. And so that's what really drove me to eventually pursue extra training in bariatric surgery. So I did a fellowship specifically learning how to do different types of bariatric surgery, specific pre and post-operative care in bariatric surgery. And, even further got to see the effect it has on people. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
people that go into medicine, you do it for altruistic reasons, to have these connections with people, to change people's lives. And I felt like this was one of the specialties where I really had the opportunity to do that. And so that's what really drove me to bariatric surgery.
Well, I'm going to blast this podcast open and we're going to talk about a lot of things other than just bariatric surgery, and which
Okay.
is why you're here. As I read your website, as I read a little bit about your approach to this, it is very different than what I've seen as the typical bariatric surgeon's approach, which is come in, let's make let's get your stomach down to the size of a 1 ounce container. And then from the rest of your life, you should be good because you can't eat. It's kind of akin to let's wire your jaw shut for 60
Mm.
days. And then after that, you'll be fine. And what we know is that when you take that wire off, people aren't fine. They just go right back to their old habits. So, Dr. Greer, what sets you apart from the surgeon that comes in, gives you a teacup stomach size, and then sends you on your way? And how does this program work for you that's different?
Mhm. So I think the big thing that we've learned is that this has to be kind of a full scale change to have success, right? So I think a lot of people see bariatric surgery as this last resort and it's going to be this kind of magic pill in a way where I'm going to get surgery and everything's going to be fine. But what we've really seen is that this is a process. And so we as a group have developed a program where we start early, we start before surgery, helping people see how is your life going to change. Let's start to make some of
Mhm.
these changes to help people be successful long term, but then also making sure that after surgery we don't want to be a cut them and leave them type group. We want to see people, especially that first year. I always tell my patients, plan on seeing me 4 to 5 times in the first year after surgery. And so that we can kind of discuss, how are things changing? How are we going to be successful with the changes that you need to make to be successful? And then we encourage people to see us forever. We to see people every year after surgery to make sure that we can help them along their journey. Because, like you said, if we just kind of take off the wires, as you put it, and kind of let people be on their own, there's still a lot of things that go into it, right? Like there's still the how do we change our diets to be successful with surgery? How do we change our activity levels to be successful with surgery? And then there's also kind of the mental aspect of this where we want to be supportive with that as well. And so our program is, anywhere from 3 to 6 months before surgery, you're working with us to prepare you for surgery. And then hopefully we're working with you indefinitely to help it be a success long term.
Okay. I was at an event pre-Christmas, and as always, it's time to dress up and look fabulous, and I had all women at my table except for my husband, John. He's used to that. And as one of the women walked in, she came over and sat next to me. I said, "Oh my gosh, you look fabulous. That dress is amazing on you, tight and red and blah," And she said, "Well, you have to do this now." And I said, "You have to do what?" And she said, "Well, you have to take injections."
Mhm.
And I said, "Tell me about that." And she said, "Well, just look around this room, Mary, and all the women here. They're all skinny now." And I took a moment to look around the room and at women, most of them I had known. And I was like, she's right. They all look fantastically thin. And she said, "So if you're not taking injections, you're like not accepted. If you're not skinny, you're not accepted." And I said, "Oh, honey, that's just not now." As someone who walked this journey since I was 4, for the last 68 years, I had been on that journey. This is not new. It's just that now we have something that's available to us other than something that's as drastic as bariatric surgery. And she said, "Yes, but now we have a way to maintain it." And I think that that's become the mindset, Doug, is that if they can lose weight on these injections, but I've talked to really literally hundreds of women who've tried to go off of them and they immediately gain the weight back. So we're talking about the very issue that you just talked about, which is what is the emotional and mental change? What is the physical piece that we need to add other than an injection to help people be successful at health and wellness, not just weight loss? How do you see these injections affecting your practice, and how do you see them affecting society in general?
Well, I mean, they've affected our practice in a lot of ways. I think the overall total of surgeries that are being done are going down, and that's a nationwide trend. Reported, most people are saying that the reduction in surgery is about 30% over the
Wow.
last year. And so a lot of people are turning to the injections to kind of see, can I have the successful weight loss that I want to have with these injections? And, you know, in our practice and our mindset is it shouldn't be an either or type situation. So we have a
Mm,
whole in our practice, we have a whole medical weight loss wing where we don't even talk about surgery. We talk about doing different medications, dietary changes, um, exercise programs, all these things, because we know that there's not a one size fits all way for weight loss.
Right.
I think the societal effect of these medications, I think there's pros and cons. I think the pro is that there is a very effective way to help people lose weight and maintain their weight loss. The traditional weight loss medications that we had before, that I'm sure a lot of people have tried, whether it's the phentermines, the topiramate, these kind of old school medications,
Right.
have a lot of terrible side effects. They don't work very well. And I think people are very frustrated with the medical weight loss. And a lot of these newer medications are much better. People are losing more weight, they're maintaining the weight loss. As you
But
pointed
do they
out, we
have to
are
stay on the drug to maintain the weight loss?
So that's kind of what we're now starting to see. So a lot of
Oh,
kind of the long-term studies kind of show that if you stop them completely, that your chance of having weight rebound is very high. Most people are gaining all of the weight that they lost back, if not more, having kind of this rebound effect. And so that's really kind of the next step with these medications, is finding what is, a dosage that someone can be on long term. So whether it's taking a certain dosage every other week, whether it's taking a smaller dose
huh.
weekly, these are
Okay.
things that people are kind of experimenting with to see how they can be effective with maintaining the weight loss. Now, I think what people don't think about, which is something that we try to talk about, is that a lot of people feel that obesity is it's all a mental thing. And there's a lot of people
Yeah.
that think that obesity and weight gain is something that it's a willpower issue, and that someone that is overweight, it's a choice that they've made. And what we know from, there's a lot of science that shows that obesity is a medical condition. And
Yes.
just like diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, if you stop treating those things, then you're going to start to see the effects. Your blood pressure is going to go up, your cholesterol is going to go up, you're going to have these issues. And it's the same thing with obesity. And these new medications are starting to show that as well, that if we stop treating the obesity, then you start to have these weight regain as well. And so that's really something that we try to instill in our patients, is this is not something that you did wrong. This is not something that you have some problem that someone else didn't. There's a very large genetic aspect to
Yeah.
people, how they gain weight, how they lose weight. And so we're just trying to help people treat this chronic disease, not, trying to help people realize this is not something that they did wrong. There are plenty of people that we have that are very healthy. I know I get into arguments all the time with other doctors about whether our patients are lazy, whether they're, making these terrible choices. And I choose to believe my patients when they tell me that I work out every day, I don't eat that much, but I can't lose weight, because science shows that that is the truth, that people are in that situation. And, I think if there are people listening to podcasts that feel that way, you're not alone. I see a lot of patients. I've had patients who have run marathons before they get surgery because they are that motivated, but they still
Right.
can't lose weight.
Yeah. I can't tell you, as a child that became obese at age 4, what I heard from and growing up in the 50s, 'cause we're talking a long time ago with the mindset, but like, "Oh, yeah, you're just like your Aunt Neva," and it's genetics, but then the constant, you just have no willpower. Can I just tell you how many times I was told that growing up? "Mary, you need willpower. You just need willpower not to eat." I'm like, "Seriously?" If I ever heard that those 2 words again in my life, it'd be way too soon. It's like slight somebody when they say that to me.
Yeah.
And that this genetic piece is such a huge piece that people don't understand. And when I went to college, and I graduated in social work, the question always was during, of course, the '70s was the big thing of, is it nature or is it nurture? And how many times did I debate that? And now I know that the answer to that question, is it nature or is it nurture? The answer is yes. You can't separate the two. Yes, there's genetics, but there's also the situation and the nurturing that you grew up in, and you can't separate them. And to be able to help people to dissect that mentally and to understand their emotions is a is a huge service to people. I love that approach that you're taking, and that it's I often said, now I'm not cured from being an overeater, or I'm not cured from someone who is living an unhealthy lifestyle. I am a recovering alcoholic. I see myself the same way. Hi, I'm Mary Crafts. I'm an alcoholic. Hi, I'm Mary Crafts. I'm focused on a healthy lifestyle where I'm fit and I have the energy to live the life I want, but constantly vigilant. How does that play into, like, do you have emotional support for these people, mental support?
Yeah, we do. So we have a team of social workers that specialize in weight management strategies, and so they work a lot with people who haven't had surgery. They work with people that have had surgery, just to kind of talk about some of those issues that
Mm,
come up. We have support groups. So we have almost every week, we have different types of support groups. We have people that are just out of surgery dealing with surgery, the immediate surgery issues. We have our long term, which is people that are a year and more out, kind of talking about some of these kind of more long term things that come up. And then we kind of have special interest support groups from time to time
right.
talking about different topics. And so that's part of the program that we built because we know this is a lifelong battle. And so
Yeah.
that's something that we try to do.
One of the things I think is a plus and a minus, as all things are, in this age of Dr. Google, is that people turn to Dr. Google for advice. And sometimes that advice helps them make a decision of, oh, I want to go see Dr. Greer. I want to explore these possibilities. Other times, in fact, I said to this person that was talking to me about, well, you have to be on these drugs. I said, clearly, medically, you do not need to be on these drugs. You don't have diabetes. You were what, 15 pounds overweight? And so, how does a doctor prescribe these things for you? And she said, well, first of all, a lot of doctors prescribe them now, whether you need them or not. And then she said, but also you just get them online. And if they only want to prescribe them to people who are heavy, you just lie. And they ask what your weight is, and you say, oh, I'm 190 pounds. And I said, honey, you've never seen 190 pounds. Don't even give me that. She said, no, I haven't. But they don't check. They don't know. And so I thought about, how does that person know what their prescription would look like, what it should be to maintain? Uh, Dr. Google is not the answer. So, what do you see as the pitfalls and dangers of that approach to what we're seeing?
Well, I think there's a lot of dangers with that because one, I think people don't fully understand where the weight loss is coming from with some of these medications. So, part of the issue with these medications and part of the problem with some of these online pharmacies we're able to get them is you're you don't always lose weight where you want to lose weight. Now, I'm sure plenty of
Ah,
people that as they've lost weight can attest to this, where you're like, well, maybe my arms are looking a little bit bigger. I'm really hoping I lose weight, but your arms stay the same and everything else seems to shrink, right? And so that's
especially your
definitely
boobs.
yeah. I mean, that's definitely something that we see, and I always kind of warn our patients that you don't get to choose where you lose weight. But part of the problem is that not only are you losing fat, you can lose muscle as well,
Muscle.
and so that's one of the long-term issues with these medications is you really need someone to be monitoring what part of your body are you losing? Because you could be losing muscle mass and not fat mass. And so we actually have seen patients that go on these medications where when we do body scans to kind of get a percentage, what is
Yes.
your percentage body weight, broken down into muscle, fat, bone, all that stuff. And we'll see that people will lose 10 to 15 pounds, but their body fat content will go up because
Ugh,
they're losing muscle. And so that's when we need to start talking about, okay, what type of exercises do we need to do to build that muscle back up? What kind of diet do we need to have you on? And so if you're just getting a random medication from someone that's not monitoring that, that is kind of the risk that you're kind of being put at, is that you're potentially losing muscle. And long term, I think, I've gotten a lot into some of these longevity studies. I don't know
yes.
if you've heard of Peter Attia, he's an MD who
Yeah.
has a great book and podcast. And that's one of the signs of not being able to age well, is that if you lose muscle mass and your muscle mass goes down, then that's going to affect you long term. And so is that risk worth it to lose those 10 to 15 pounds? I personally don't think so.
Yeah.
And so that's why, I think some of those online pharmacies can be, although convenient, can be very dangerous in that sense, is that we don't know what the long-term effects are going to be. This is all so new, right? Like this is the
Yeah.
last 5 years, these things have
Yeah.
become nameplace. And so we may see studies in the next 5 to 10 years about people that are in terrible spots because they weren't monitored correctly. And so that's something that I worry about long term. And so I always kind of encourage people that if you are going to do it with a physician that's going to monitor you and do the things that you need to do to make sure that you're losing weight safely with these
Yeah.
medications.
Agreed. Totally agree. How does someone know if they're a good candidate for the bariatric surgery portion of this weight loss journey?
So there are specific criteria as far as recommendations with insurances specifically, because, I think a lot of people think that most people that get bariatric surgery, I think the old school thought is you're paying cash, you're, spending less money, but every
Yeah.
single major insurance company does cover bariatric surgery. Not
Mm,
every single plan within insurance company may cover it, but there's very specific recommendations. So if your BMI or body mass index is over 35 and you have a comorbid medical condition, so those are things like high blood pressure, sleep apnea, diabetes, then you would qualify for a bariatric surgery. If your BMI is over 40, you don't need a comorbid condition. You would qualify for bariatric surgery. And so those are the people that we kind of encouraged to look at bariatric surgery, is once you're in one of those categories. The other thing with bariatric surgery is not only do you lose weight, but they have been shown to be great treatment for a lot of these medical conditions. So, for
right.
example, diabetes, we see patients, depending on the type of surgery you look into, anywhere from 80 to 95% remission within 1 year, where people are no longer diabetic. And that's a life-changing thing right there, to no longer have
Right.
to take, those medications. We did a study with the University of Utah that showed that it increased life expectancy by anywhere from 5 to 10 years just by getting control of diabetes. The mortality rate reduced by 95% with
Yeah.
just diabetes control. And so that's the other thing that we look into, is, are there certain medical conditions that we know will be treated appropriately with these surgeries? So that's, once again, taking that kind of whole person approach. What are your goals? What are we trying to do to kind of help people and kind of come up what is the best weight loss option, whether it's medications or surgery?
And how does the exercise, play into your plan? Is it the surgery and then the groups are going to support you through this? Or do you really encourage and provide for them plans that work for them? Because everyone knows they want to go to well, they want to be fit.
Yeah.
and that they want to be strong. And a lot of people don't want their arms to look like the way that mine look, but
Yeah.
they know that they need muscle mass, and it's the single greatest thing that has helped me age and maintain my balance and be healthy is having a strong body and core. And but not everyone wants to go to the gym. Not everyone wants to lift weights. Not everyone, like I hear, I don't want to go to the treadmill. It's so boring. Ugh, how do you do that? So, how do you help design a program for people that actually fits into their lifestyle?
That's that's the hard thing. Because, I mean, I think anyone that goes to the gym on a regular basis knows the gym is not that much fun, right? I mean, it's kinda
I
like
love it.
my wife always tells me that I have to eat vegetables because I'm an adult and you have to do things that, that are good
Yeah,
for you. It's the same with exercise. And so what I kind of encourage people is to try to find activities that they know are going to be sustainable. Not everyone is going to go and find, their perfect gym routine of I'm going to lift legs, arms, back one day, I'm going to do this another day. Not everyone's built that way. And so we've got to
right.
find activities that are good for them that are also going to help long term with their health. And so that may not be a gym routine. That may be you know, let's get into pickleball, let's get into hiking,
Yeah,
let's get
well, those were
into,
my 2 things. I used to I
yeah, yeah,
pickleball and hiking.
yeah, things that are going to be something that motivates them to get out and be active. Our
Mhm.
major goal for our patients is the American Heart Association wants you to be doing 200 minutes of some activity that increases your heart rate.
Right.
And so, whatever it takes to get you out to do that, that's what we're going to kind of talk about, and try to find like what is that activity for you, because if we just say like, okay, go to the gym, walk on the treadmill, yes, most people probably aren't going to do that unless they're like you and they enjoy it. I do enjoy that time. It's kind of a zen
Yeah.
time for me
Yeah.
of just kind of zoning out and not having to think about anything, but not everyone is like that. And so it's really having that discussion with the patient to be like, okay, what kind of thing is going to be something that you enjoy to then help you be more physically active, and how can we encourage you with that?
Yeah. I do think that that is it, is finding those things that fit into your lifestyle. I always said when I was working before I retired that I'm sorry, I just prior to age 50, I don't have time. That was my big thing. I don't have time for exercise. Are you kidding? I'm working 18 hours a day, 2 hours with my children and sleeping 4. You know, and that kind of lifestyle does not lead to healthy living, and you cannot possibly begin to address a weight loss program until you get your life in balance. And weight loss, it's kind of like what's came first, the chicken or the egg? Do you get your life in balance and then you start this, or do you start this and then your life in balance just begins to come? How do you see that with chicken and egg?
I think every person is different because I think if we waited for everything to be perfect, then we may lose that opportunity, right? And so
Yeah.
if you l what I've learned is that life is never going to be perfect. There's never gonna be that perfect time, and I think if you're always putting off, when am I gonna start my weight loss journey, you could be waiting a long time.
Yeah.
I think there is an aspect of once you start to see the weight loss, that's a motivator. And so I have a lot of patients that, they've tried a lot, the hardcore diets. They've done these boot camp exercise programs and they don't see the results that they're hoping, and that's discouraging. And so
Yeah.
then they give up very easily. Then they have a surgery, they lose 30 pounds in a month, and it's a little bit easier to stick to this diet. It's a little bit easier to find the time to go to the gym because you start seeing those actual results, and that can be a real motivator to see that weight loss and to actually see success. And so I think there are probably people that fall into both categories. Obviously, part of the preoperative workup is seeing that you are in the right mental space to go forward with a surgery, because if you
Yes.
have a lot of things going on in your life, that this is going to be an added stressor and is going to lead to more issues, then yeah, it's not the time for this. And we need to kind of
Yeah.
deal with some of those issues. But I think there are a lot of people that are in a situation where they just need that little nudge to then take the next step. And that's what we try to help people with.
Yeah. I am probably, I don't think that I'm unique in my journey, but I do think that I am unique in as much as that at age 50, when I got the photos back from my 50th birthday party, and I went to Kmart to pick them up. That's how long ago it was. We didn't have cell phones with cameras on them. You actually had to use a camera and go and develop them. But I
Yeah.
looked at that picture of me at age 50 and just sat there in the parking lot and wept. I never anticipated this was going to be me. I didn't know how I got here. But if I don't know how I got here, I didn't know how to give away. And it really took a lot of self-introspection and keeping a journal and tracking my fears and knowing that when I was afraid of something is when I would eat. And what those fears were and where they came from and tracking that and just starting with a little thing like I stopped eating after 5. I just stopped it. And people say to me, "That's crazy. What you have to eat before you go to bed or you get hungry." I'm like, No, if you're hungry, just go to bed." And and then make the decision I was going to start to get physical for the first time in my oversized sweats, going to Gold's Gym before it was Voss, it was Gold's, and going to the last row to the last treadmill so no one would see me. And I could walk 15 minutes at 2. And the difference in this kind, Doug, was though that I went back day 2 and I went back day 3. I had never done that before. And so that decision to create something different in your life was really what began to motivate me and turn me. And it was kind of like climbing Kilimanjaro. You see, in fact, most of the time when you're climbing, you can't see the summit, but you know it's there and you know where you're going. But then to set up those mid-range goals, and I set up a goal of 20 pounds each time. That was my goal, to get to a 20-pound weight, lose 20 pounds. And that's kind of when you're hiking, you set up something 100 yards ahead. Like, when I get there, I'm going to take a sip of water. I'm going to take a breath and then go on. But then I realized that the most important step was watching my feet. Each step, every day, determined where I was going to end up. And if I got off track, if I was just looking at a moment to moment, day to day step, you never got too far off track. And you could bring it back and get back in line again and again, day after day. I put a little Post-it note on my mirror that said, "What would I do today if I was no longer afraid?" And I made that decision every day. Today I will do this because I'm no longer afraid. And after in the end, I lost 140 pounds. But when I got to that step of, I think I'd lost probably 100 pounds at that point. And for some reason, I was standing in front of the mirror that day. I looked at the definition in my arms and I was like, damn, I think there's some muscle there. And I put my arms up like this and did this pose. And I was like, holy hell, look at that. And I took pictures of it. By that point in time, you could put a photo on a printer and print it out. And But it is every day making these decisions. And when you have someone like you or your team that can help you every step and support you, and that you can share with, today was not a very good day. My feet were, off in Timbuktu, and get people back. That is such a gift. Mine was the hard way. And yours is I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier to have a guide that knows the way. Just like Kilimanjaro, I didn't take off up to the top of that mountain without a guide. I went with a crew, with a team, Sherpas, the whole thing, because they knew the way. You offer people that guide, that Sherpa, you know the way. You've been there. You've watched people have success. It's a gift what you do. Do you see it that way? I know you
You know,
do.
yeah, I mean, that's what keeps you coming back every day, right? Is seeing those successes. And, in full disclosure, I've actually had a bariatric surgery myself. So I actually had a sleeve gastrectomy about 2 years ago. Kind of like how you kind of talked about, I kind of had a aha moment in my life. I watched, you know, person after person transform their life. I had tried every single diet. I had tried every single exercise program. I grew up playing high school sports. I was very active, all these things. And I had a son who passed away in an accident, and kind of had a kind of this moment in my life where I was like, life is short
Yeah,
and I don't know what's going to happen in the next moment. And I have to be here for my family, and I need to get healthy, and I need to be the best person that I can be. And finally I bit the bullet and did what I knew was the right thing.
yeah,
My wife and I talked about whether I should go on some of these medications and things like that. And I was at a point in my life where I didn't feel that was sufficient. And so I did the surgery. I've been through the surgery. I've been through the recovery. I've been through the pre-op process.
mm,
I've done all those things, and so that has helped me to also kind of see what my patients kind of go through from that
yeah,
sense. We do talk a lot about we talk a lot about the physical, and we've kind of brought up the mental aspect. I kind of tell all my patients, you're going to have buyer's remorse at some point, and you're going to sit down, you're going to think, what the hell did I do? Why am I here? This was the worst decision I've ever had. Because even me, who does the surgeries, who sees the people, I had a moment where I was like, "Oh my gosh, what have I done? This was terrible."
uh,
But now I don't regret it for a second. Like, I have been able to do things, that I wasn't able to do before. There's the whole thing with obesity is that it's more than just the physical. There's the mental aspect. There's the discrimination that we see with people that are overweight, whether
yeah,
it's an obvious discrimination or whether it's a subconscious discrimination. There are things like I would see a shirt that I really wanted to buy, but it just didn't fit right,
yeah,
because when you're buying it in a double XL size, it goes down to my knees because I'm not a tall person. I'm a pretty short guy. And so I
yeah,
had, issues like that, or I had to do the walk of shame where I'm on a roller coaster and the harness won't go all the way down, so I have to get up and walk away and leave my children behind on the roller coaster. Things that, were hard to deal with. And then
yeah,
finally it was like, you know what, I've had enough of this, and I'm going to make the changes. And so, you know, I I had the surgery, I've lost the weight, and now I'm in the maintenance phase, right? And so now it is that I have to make sure to make the time to go to the gym to keep my weight off. I have to make sure to make the correct choices as far as what I eat and things like that. And so now I'm in that phase of the recovery process. And so I can
yeah.
definitely kind of feel that with people and kind of go from there.
That's awesome. That's excellent. I I told you before this podcast started that I speak to people all the time about being vulnerable. And you were just extremely vulnerable. And I applaud you for that because suddenly the energy on this podcast shifted. When you can share your own personal journey, then energy shifts. And I told you before the podcast that I didn't know if I was going to share mine, but I am. So I've often wondered what happened to me at age 4. At age 3, I have photos of me, just this beautiful, happy, full of life, sitting on a bench, kicking my legs to my birthday cake next to me with 3 candles in it. And then there are no pictures of when I'm 4. And then when you see the next pictures of me at 5, a 5-year-old, I had to weigh close to 100 pounds. And I am still on the journey of going back to discovering what sort of adverse childhood experience was there for me that took me down this path of protectionism with my weight. It's still a journey at age 72. I discover stuff all the time. In fact, on Wednesday, I fly to Florida. My brother winters there, he and his wife, because they live in Minnesota, so obviously they want to spend their winters in Florida. And I'm going to ask him, he's 10 years older than me. He was around when that happened, whatever it was. I want to know. We're going to have that discussion. My brother and I have never had that kind of discussion. But I'm willing to take the risk to step in, to continue my healing process. So by the time I was 27, 28, 1979, 78, somewhere in there, I had bariatric surgery at your clinic at St. Mark's. I lost a ton of weight. And then I was married, and I married into a very abusive situation that I stayed in for 28 years. Where someone like me, people just think, how is that possible that you were a victim of domestic violence? And why did you stay? You were the money earner. I've had to look at all of that shit. And within 5 years, I'd gained it all back. And when I finally made the decision to turn my life around again at age 50, I was even heavier than I was when I went into surgery. That's why, Doug, what you're doing is so immensely important to me. Because the hospital didn't offer any sort of follow-up like that back then. They did their surgery, they did their part, they wanted to make sure that you were healing correctly, and then send you on your way. Good luck. We never talked about what led to this weight and where was that coming from. It was a long journey for me to try and figure it out myself. That's why I'm overwhelmed with joy that that's the piece you're offering now to people. And I guess you've offered that for quite a while now. Not just let me sew your stomach really small and send you on your way, but let's be here. Let's be your guide as you climb this mountain. Because the surgery is just the first step. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So as we end this podcast today, are there any advice or any suggestions or any invitations that you might have for those listeners that are trying to figure this piece out?
Yeah, I mean, my advice for people is that when it comes to your weight loss journey, there's not a one size fits all approach. There's not the perfect diet that everyone is going to do well with. There's not the perfect exercise program. There's not the perfect medication. There's not the perfect surgery, right? There's every person is different. And so when you're looking into what do I need to do, I'd always say look to someone that knows all your options to try to
Yeah.
figure out a plan that is good for you, because that I think is the hard part. Is I think we're in this world where you get an article about this is the perfect diet, and so everyone tries it,
Yeah.
and everyone's
Yeah.
not going to have the same effect, right? And not everyone's workout program is going to be the same. And so I encourage people to kind of look and find what is going to work for them, because the most successful thing is not, maybe your most successful thing is not what your neighbor's most successful thing is
Right.
going to be. We've got to find what's good for you. And so, we're always here to help people with that and find what's going to work best. And, with the new year coming and the typical New Year's resolution of everyone getting more fit and,
Yeah. Yeah.
new year, new them. We're here to help them with that. So
And I always say it's the new year, but you're not looking for a new you. You who you've always been is beautiful. All we're looking to do is to uncover it and allow you to see all the beauty that's always been there. It's always been there. Thank you for being on this show with us today. At the end of this podcast, of course, you can find the links to talk to Dr. Greer and his staff. So we'll put his website there and any other contacts that he wants, so you can learn more about the new and improved way to get fit and be healthy and be the best you. It's time. I always say that there's nothing you can't accomplish, and it's never too late. I started at age 50. I talk to women all the time who are starting this journey at age 60, at age 70 now. At 72, I inspire a lot of people who are in their living in crescendo years. But this is for you. This podcast is meant for you. And Dr. Greer is here with so much help and support that if this is something that's on your mind and you want a little consultation, I'm not meant to be, somebody's info commercial, but I can tell you that help is out there. And this is one direction that has my support and has my total support on what he's doing and the way he's doing it. Thanks for so much for being with me, doctor. And for all of you out there, this new year is the time to be about crafting your meaningful life. Thank you.
Crafting a Meaningful Life.